is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Your Missouri Tigers are 5-0 heading into a big, I almost said prime time, but it's going to be prime time for us here at Mizzou. That's who your podcast for Missouri Athletics at KC Sports Network. I'm joined by Maggie Johnson. No Gabe this week still no Gabe. We're still on the hunt for Gabe. We're trying to figure out where he went. He's
like Carmen Sandiego.
I don't need to just stopped responding to us. He said, I don't need to be on the podcast anymore. You guys got it. So we're holding it down for another week. Still trying to chase down another guest that we can have. Possibly somebody can come on after the LSU game. That's what we've been talking about. Still trying to chase him down though. So we'll get to him. He'll be on the podcast soon. I'm convinced, Maggie. But so another week, you and I, how you doing? How was your game day experience?
My game day experience was great. I got to watch the game from the comfort of my home, which, as our listeners know, I enjoy doing. Yeah. I really do. If I want to watch the replay, I get to watch the replay as many times as I want to watch the replay. So that was great. And then I got to watch other games, which was also great. I enjoy doing that too. Yeah. Gives you a little bit of, information on other games. So yeah, I loved it. And, you just get more perspective when you get to watch it from your couch. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I felt like the game wasn't as close as some people, maybe made it out to be. I saw something on Twitter. Somebody was like, you guys only beat you. The game was so close or something. I'm like, it really wasn't that close.
Right. It's good. It's a scoreboard thing. At 38-21, I believe Mizzou did end up covering.
By quite a bit. I mean, yeah. I think 11.5.
Yeah. I think that, they did what they were supposed to do, was to take care of business game, get in, get out. And that's kind of the biggest takeaway that I had for, they're supposed to be Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt was starting Ken Seals. We talked about AJ Swan last week on the podcast. And when we were on the podcast, we did mention that, his health, his situation was up in the air. And they just needed another change at quarterback. AJ Swan was turning the ball over at an incredibly high clip. And that's something Ken Seals only did once. He threw one interception to Chris Strain, who is a ball hawk.
In the end zone. So that was a great pick. With me at the right time.
It was very opportune. And that's what good defenses do. They come up with turnovers at opportune moments. But I was really impressed with, the way Brady Cook played again. He put another great game. He sets the record for most consecutive passing attempts between interceptions. Still has yet to throw it. The record is just still going, by the way, as we record this podcast. A very, very good day for him. 395 yards, 4 touchdowns, 33 for 41. I've been really impressed with the offense in general. They're throwing a lot of different things out there, a lot of different looks. Maggie, and I know the big conversation when we started at the beginning of the year was, are they holding back? Are Kirby Moore and company holding back? Are they running the vanilla plays against South Dakota, Middle Tennessee, see if they can get by, running the ball a whole lot? Nathaniel Pete led the way in carries, by the way, 12 carries, 71 yards. I should say he led the way in yardage in terms of that, because I believe, Cody Fisher had 16 carries for 60 yards. Pete had a good game. A lot of individual guys had a good game against Vanderbilt there. But I want to talk about Brady Cook, Maggie. He's been playing incredibly well, and he's been putting himself in a great position. I believe it was the Manning Award Elite 8 or something like that. Grade 8 is what they call it for this past week against Vanderbilt. He's doing these records where he's not turning the ball over, which I think has really been huge recently for Missouri. But what are your thoughts been so far on Brady Cook?
I mean, you just love to see it. And I know Gabe and I talked about this at the beginning of the season, and I got a little bit of pushback on it because so many people, after last year and after his injury and all of this stuff, people just wanted to see a change. They didn't really care about maybe what was going on behind the scenes. They just wanted to see a change. But people, they just kind of saw that it was just, maybe I was blinded by fandom, the same way Drink was maybe blinded by the fact that Brady is just a good kid.
Right.
I don't think that that's the case. I think that Brady is a smart quarterback. I think he's similar to maybe how Chase Daniel was. And Chase Daniel was a very smart quarterback. And Chase Daniel's very talented too, don't get me wrong. But Chase Daniel's a very smart quarterback.
Yeah.
And, Brady deserves this moment. I mean, in his last 3 games, 23 for 35, 356 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's K-State. 18 for 25, 341, 2 touchdowns. That's Memphis. Then 33 for 41, 395, 4 touchdowns. That's Vandy. All without an interception. I mean, he looks cool, calm, comfortable. And I mean, dare I say it, looks like a top 3 SEC quarterback. I couldn't be happier for him. Proud he's a Missouri Tiger. Proud he's from Missouri. And I'm just excited to see what he keeps doing. I hope he continues this into the LSU game. Hope he continues it past that.
Well, I do kind of want to, maybe I should have saved this topic for the end so I could have parlayed it into the LSU conversation right before we were done talking about it, because I think there's a good natural transition into a conversation about LSU is Jaden Daniels. There's so many different Daniel quarterbacks.
I know. I get him and Jalen.
Jaden. I mean, there's probably another. Oh, there's JT as well. He's now at Rice. I'm pretty sure Mizzou is in the conversation for all but one of them, and that would be Jalen Daniels. But a quarterback that Missouri was recruiting to come in and play over Brady Cook. It's going to be an interesting conversation and an interesting dynamic. And I do want to dive into that a little bit more, but I want to talk about, as you mentioned, like his past few games have been 300 plus receiving yard games in the biggest game of his career against Kansas State. But this year he's thrown over 1,400 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. The no interception thing is the biggest thing for me, because we knew going into the season that this Missouri defense was going to be really good. And a lot of times last year, the defense ended up being the best part of the team last year. And a lot of the times the defense would end up, I don't want to say folding because I don't think that's fair to the defense. They were put in opportune situations, short fields, turnovers like that. Specifically, I think of the Florida game, right? Florida was able to force the Missouri offense to turn the ball over so many times and like put the Florida offense in opportune positions to put the Missouri defense in tough situations on short fields to try to hold them to just field. Like there was points in that game where you're thinking, okay, well, we have to hold them to a field goal here if we even want to think about getting back into this game. And I think that's kind of the one that sticks out to me the most, but he hasn't been turning the ball over, hasn't been putting pressure on that defense. I know a lot of people kind of freaked out after a 172-yard, 1 touchdown performance against South Dakota. Now he did only play half of that game. But even against Middle Tennessee, you're looking at 2 touchdown performance, 204 yards. But then he comes out against Kansas State, has that 350-yard game, as you mentioned, 340, 395. He's throwing the ball through the air. He is utilizing the weapons that Missouri has had. And this is what we've been wanting to see. Like, we've been wanting to see Luther Burden get involved. And Luther Burden, we could probably do a whole podcast about Luther Burden because the way he's playing ball is incredible. You got people talking about him being a top pick, could be this year if he can't. Well, he's not eligible to come out, but like if he came out, the people were talking about like, hey, he could be. You're looking early day 2 pick in terms of just the talent and just seeing him develop into the guy that we always knew that Luther Burden would be. Forget the 5-star status. Now he's a very high premier receiver in I almost said National Football League, in the Southeastern Conference and the NCAA as a whole. And so I think that's really been good. It's really been cool to see not only Brady Cook grow, but the potential of this wide receiver room not turn in from potential to actually happening. I remember one thing, Maggie, real quick before. I remember Eli Drinkwitz was on Sports Radio 810 in Kansas City. And he was asked by, I think it was Stephen St. John, said like, hey, let's talk about like the talent and the potential in this wide receiver room. And Drinkwitz said, I'm tired of talking about the talent and potential in this receiver room. We just talk about the potential and talent all the time. Now you're actually seeing that. And that's what he was saying. He's like, I want to see them go out and do it. That's what they're doing. They're going out and doing it. And I think that does go in hand with what Brady Cook's been able to do, is they've been able to put those guys in opportune situations. And it's all just kind of been a perfect mesh and a perfect marriage there.
Well, and the best thing about the wide receiver room is you can't go to Luther Burden and say, okay, well, we're just going to double team Luther Burden.
Right.
Because you know what that's going to do? It's going to let Theo Weiss go. I mean, Luther Burden wasn't double teamed against Vandy, but it's going to let Theo Weiss have games where he gets 10 receptions for 118 yards like he just did against Vanderbilt. Or it's going to open up Marquise Johnson like it does, or it's going to open up Mookie Cooper. I mean, you have so many weapons. And it's crazy because I keep seeing other teams even in the SEC, which I don't think people are really watching Mizzou games yet. So they're just watching highlights and they're just hearing Luther Burden's name. So they're like, oh, that's the only player that Mizzou's targeting. And it's not, which is crazy to me, but that they're not understanding this. But that's just what they're seeing, or it's what they're hearing. So they think it's the only person that they're throwing to. But there's just so many weapons on this team. Right. And I love that Cook has so much to look at. And I think the difference is from like last year to this year. I think with Cook, last year he had a play and a play was given to him. And when that play was given to him, he's like, that's where I'm going with it. Mm-hmm. And I think he's so much more confident in himself. I think he's so much more confident in his receivers that he knows he has options, and he knows every option that he has, they're talented and that they can make that play. And I just think they all have confidence in each other. I have confidence in them, and that's such a good feeling to have as well as a fan. So yeah, I'm excited for them to keep trucking along and see kind of what goes on. I don't know how this weekend's going to play out, but even if this weekend doesn't play out the way maybe we see it playing out, I mean, I do have confidence that we can beat LSU, but even if it doesn't, I don't think that puts that big of a damper on our season.
I want to talk more about the wide receivers, but first I got to say you guys about our folks at HomeField Apparel. Maggie and I both rocking HomeField Apparel first today. I think last week, Maggie, you were wearing this shirt. I really like this shirt.
I love it too.
The script Tigers look is a good look. I like the Fighting Tigers one that Maggie's got. That one's on the way for me. I've got a hoodie as well. I tweeted out I was rocking the gold, the Mizzou Rob, the gold with the Sailor Tiger. I think it has on there. The Sailor Tiger is always a good look, truthfully. I'm also a real sucker for the paw with the M in it. I saw a lot of the coaches were wearing like the Nike shirt with like the paw M, and I'm like, that looks good. I think they wore a helmet with the paw M on it. Was that last year for homecoming that they wore that, or I can't.
I don't remember. They always have these awesome ones that you like can't buy until like the next year, and I'm always like, that's so annoying. I'm like, I get it because they want it to be like fresh and only them have it, but
I'll have to look that up. The Paul M. Mizzou, golly, I'm looking at it right now, is in 2019. Wow, that does not seem like it was that long ago that they wore that helmet. But that was for Blackout, I think is what it says, which really cool helmet. But they got some really cool designs over there at HomeFieldApparel.com as well. You can go check them out. Plenty of vintage Mizzou stuff going on there, from hoops to they got baseball. They've got football. Lots of buzz around all three of those programs, truthfully. Maggie, we could probably do a separate podcast about basketball as they've been on a recruiting tear. So make sure you get everything you need to for Mizzou Arena, for Faroe Field. Be decked out in HomeField Apparel. Everyone I talk to has absolutely loved HomeField Apparel and all the designs that they have. If you like to branch out and have other just good shirts to wear, they've got the good shirts, over 150 college designs that they have for you at HomeFieldApparel.com. And you can get 15% off your first order at HomeField Apparel with the code KCSN23. First time order, 15% off, get you suited and booted for the LSU game coming up. Go check out HomeFieldApparel.com. Maggie and I are going to talk more about the receivers. I got some more I want to talk about this offense. Kind of crazy. Didn't think, if you would have told me this deep into the season that we'd be talking about the offense the most, I would have called you crazy in August. But here we are. We want to talk more receivers coming up right after.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
I know that counting stats can be a little misleading in terms of production-wise, because a lot of counting stats, you got to have touches, carries, whatever it is. You have to have a lot of opportunities for counting stats. But if you look at just like the SEC standings in terms of receiving yards, you're going to see Luther Burden at the top of it, 43 receptions. It looks like he also has the most in that department as well, but he's getting 14.9 yards per catch. Pretty good. And that's not the only guy Mizzou has in the top 20. Theo Weiss is also 19, 254 yards, 10 yards per catch is what he's averaging. Receiving touchdown-wise, LSU's got a couple good guys, right? Malik Neighbors, He's a stud. He's going to be drafted early. Brian Thomas Jr., another stud. He's got 8 touchdowns on the year. So that's guys that find the end zone, guys that are very talented. This is a very talented LSU team. I don't think you can deny that. Brian Kelly's came in there and has recruited really well at LSU. Obviously, it's very easy to recruit when you got that LSU, that tiger on the side of your head and all that NIL money. So the fact that Mizzou's got these guys, 2 guys in the top 20, same thing with LSU. Like they've got, it's kind of funny. You look at it, Will Shepherd, Jaden McGowan, and Landon Humphreys are all in the top 20. So Vanderbilt has 3 guys in the top 20. And in terms of receiving yards, you can take that how you want. And outside of a absolutely massive day from Ray Davis, Cody Schrader would be the number 1 rusher in the conference with 463 yards. But Ray Davis had an unreal day, which I put
that in my notes.
I don't think that can be replicated. I don't want to be. I'm going to knock on wood here. When I saw that Missouri game, it was put on primetime for Kentucky. Who would have thought that would have been the Missouri game to get put on primetime? But could be a good matchup. Mizzou ranked, I believe, 21 in the AP poll now, so ranked ahead of LSU going into this matchup. Which, again, you would have told me that in August. I don't think I would have believed you. We were talking about LSU being a national champion contender, a college football playoff contender, and now we're here, Missouri having the same amount of guys in receiving yards in the top 20 in the SEC. You're talking about a quarterback who, now Jaden Daniels does lead because they sling that ball. They sling that thing around the yard. And he has 1,700 yards, but Brady Cook's number 4 in the SEC in terms of just passing yardage with 1,468. Not very far behind, like Carson Beck is at 1,497, Jackson Dart's at 1,485. So like it's all really close, really tight there. And Jaden Daniels is at 1,710 just because, like I mentioned, the style of that offense. I am really interested this is a really big measuring stick game for where the program is at. They passed the first test of the season with Kansas State. Passed it. I think what I want to see from this game, Maggie, is I want to see the coaching take a step forward. We saw some coaching gaffes in the Kansas State game. Obviously, you already know with the delay of game, some mental lapses when it came from the players' perspectives in terms of penalties. I just want to see a clean game, really, because I think that will put Missouri in the best position to win. As you mentioned at the top, wouldn't shock me if Missouri wins this game. I think this game's a lot closer than like the Vegas line says. I think DraftKings has it at LSU favored by 6.5 points. A lot of other like advanced analytics plays has this game as a pick'em. Like this game's going to be a lot closer than people think. I believe.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, we are going to have to play a lot cleaner game against Vanderbilt. We went. Looks like we had 9 penalties for 75 yards. Mm-hmm. There was a couple of those on the defensive side, but the majority of them was undisciplined play by the offensive line. Yep. And that's been a theme for 2 years now. So that's going to be a huge thing. The reason LSU's offense is so good is, well, obviously they have a great wide receiver core. They have a great quarterback, but they have a great offensive line, and their offensive line takes care of their quarterback, gives them plenty of time to sling the ball, as you said. So, I mean, that's going to be huge if we want to compete, with the LSUs of the SEC. I think that we can keep up with LSU mainly because their defense is suspect.
Is the word I was going to use, so I'm glad to use it. It is. Yeah,
it's my best word it's my favorite word to use when describing defenses that I don't think are very good. They rank 105th in the country in scoring defense and 117th in the country in third down defense, which is pretty good since we are not good on third down offense.
Yeah.
At all. I didn't get that number, but we all know we're not good on third down offense, so I don't even need to tell we don't even need that exact number. But yeah, I mean, I think we can compete with them. I don't see why we can't. I honestly think Brady Cook's numbers are higher I know he's number 4 amongst those quarterbacks that you were just talking about. Mm-hmm. I think his numbers are higher if we don't start with Middle Tennessee and South Dakota. Jaden Daniels starts with Florida State. So there is no hiding of anything. You come out and you're playing, you bring your A game 1. You have to. And they actually ended up, I think they lost by like 21. It was a pretty close game for the first half. I watched that down in Texas. But
yeah,
I mean, they, you kind of had to kickstart it from the beginning. So, but really, they've not beat anybody good. I mean,
No.
They've beat Mississippi State, they've beat Arkansas, and they've beat...
Is Arkansas good? Like, I don't think Arkansas is good.
No, I don't think so either.
It's just to A&M, which I don't think A&M's good. Like,
no, I don't think so either. And they lost decently. I mean, by at least 2 possessions to A&M, and then they lost to whoever a non-con opponent was. So I mean, I don't think LSU has beat anybody that great. Now, when I was watching highlights earlier of the LSU game, I mean, they're big and they're physical on offense, but their defense looks pretty slow to me. When they get beat, they give up a lot. I noticed that. I mean, they do obviously have Harold Perkins, who's great, but they kind of moved him away from the position that he was playing last year.
Correct.
Which
is baffling.
Mm-hmm. That does not make any sense to me. Why would you move one of the best defensive players in the country away from a position where he is just a superstar? And if you're him, I don't get that at all. If you're Brian Kelly, I don't know what you're thinking. That would be like us being like, Luther Burden, I know you're so great in the slot, but we have somebody else that can kind of play the slot, so we're going to move you to a position that you're just like not that good in.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't really make sense, especially, I mean, like with him killing it in the slot. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I'm fine. If he wants to play where he's playing now, that's fine with me.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, it just doesn't really make sense. Obviously, we're going to have Mekhi Wingo back in the house, who was a SEC on the all freshman team whenever he played for Mizzou.
Oh.
So it'll be an interesting game. We're going to have some special guests in the house as well. I know some Mizzou alum will be in the house. Chase Daniel will be there. I know he said that, but we'll also have like Ryan Wingo,
right,
the big time recruit who is skipping the Red River. I don't even know what they call it anymore.
I think they call it the Red River. I think they call it the Red River Showdown now, but it's definitely Red River Rivalry. Our shootout was better. It's like we can't call it the Border War anymore.
Yeah,
it's more than they want to take away from us.
Yeah, it's like nothing's politically correct anymore. But I'm like, shootout was fine. Rivalry was fine. I don't know why they had to change it away from that. But yeah, but that's big. Him skipping that game with College Game Day, massive. So if we could somehow, I mean, I don't know. I don't think a win solidifies anything by any means, but
he also took the Colorado visit, I'm pretty sure.
He did.
I think he skipped going to Colorado. So
he did.
And I saw he was taking a Colorado visit, and I said, well, that's it. It's nice knowing, nice thing we were going to get him for a little bit. So, I mean, I don't blame him. Like, listen, if I got an invite to go to Colorado to visit, I would take that in a heartbeat right now.
But then they lost to Oregon by 400. So.
It's true. They did. They got smoked. But they kept it competitive with USC. USC drops in the pool. I don't know if you saw that. They beat people after that game. But I pulled up LSU's schedule. Okay. Because you make a really good point. They lose 45-24 to Florida State, which Florida State I think is a legit team. I think Florida State has it. Yeah.
I said that.
45-24. They beat Grambling State 72-10, as they should. They beat Mississippi State 41-14, as they should. Mississippi State's not that great of a team. They barely beat Arkansas 34-31. They went on 3 points. So, like, you look what Texas A&M just did to Arkansas. You kind of weigh those. I know college football is hard to say like opponents.
And it's a rivalry game. Like, that's a rivalry game. So, like, they usually keep it pretty close. I think it was a 3-point game last year.
That's Arkansas Super Bowl. If we're being honest. Arkansas Super Bowl there. Then they played Ole Miss, which Ole Miss beat them 55-40. Very high scoring game. Lots of offense in that game. But that's how Lane Kiffin wants to play. Is he wants to score all these points? He wants to have that high flying offense. I got some dudes there at Ole Miss, but seems like they got their swagger back in that game. Ole Miss did, but I don't know. This game is going to be really interesting in terms of the response. I think this game would be a little bit different if Missouri had lost to Kansas State, right? I think it would feel a bit more desperate. Right now, I don't know, Maggie, how it feels to you. It almost feels like we're playing with house money a little bit. That's kind of, and I hope that like they don't take that for granted, right? Of like, all right, let's go out there, let's unleash it, let's throw the ball around the yard, let's let Luther eat, let's blitz, let's get after LSU, let's force some turnovers, because they got nothing to lose right now. If they lose this game, like, will they fall out of the top 25? I don't know, maybe. But does that matter at this point? No. They'll still be 5-1 with some pretty. They've got some winnable games coming up. I'm not sold on Florida. I'm not sold on Kentucky. Like, they've got a couple of games. Like South Carolina, I think is a very looking now to be a team. I think that they could probably take advantage of. I think that like this isn't as desperate as this game could have been when we talked about it in August or July, when we were going through our game previews. I'm a bit more optimistic with this one, though, because I do think, it probably because it's what Eli Drinkwitz showed us in the Kansas State game. They unleashed that offense and they let it sing. They let it go out there. They've been running the ball really well. The offensive line's been playing really well too, and I've been impressed with them. So I think offensively, I don't have a ton to worry. I just want to see them play like free. Like that's really it. I just don't want them to be like try to play not to lose. I want to see him play to win. And I want to see that aggressiveness from Drink that we've seen, against Kansas State. We saw it come out, and I get why he was being a little conservative. I get why they're saving a little bit of the playbook away. Hopefully that does not happen for the rest of the year. Obviously, these are SEC games for the rest of the year. I don't anticipate that to happen. But I just want to see this team come out there, all fire on all cylinders, come out aggressive, because that's I think when we see the best Missouri team is when they are aggressive from a coaching standpoint, from an offensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint. When they are aggressive, they play their best football, and I think they will. I mean, this is a big game. I don't think it's bigger than Kansas State. I think it would be. I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. I think that Kansas State game was really big. This game is also very big because it's LSU. That's a brand that's coming into your house. That's a team that is ranked. That is a team that has national attention around them always. To be able to beat them in a year where you're 5-0 hosting them, would be big not only for like this year, but just to point to it, as Eli Drinkwitz kind of has since 2019 or 2020, when they beat them. Like that was a big recruiting thing. Like, yeah, we beat the defending national champions. Now, granted, team was not very good, did not end up being very good, but it's still good to say, hey, look, we beat LSU in this year, in the first year. So there's just a lot. I think there's a lot from Missouri's perspective. I think there's a lot to love about the position they're in going into this game.
I think for Mizzou too, I think a big thing for them was just kind of after last year, I think they were playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think they were better than, their record indicated. And I think they knew that. I don't think that they thought that they were a 6-6 or 6-7 if you really put that much, emphasis on a bowl game where half of your team didn't play or, anything like that. But I think that they knew that they were better. And I mean, I knew that they were better. I look at, that silly Kentucky game, and I look at the Auburn, the kick and the fumble and whatever. I knew that they were a better team than what happened. And I knew that they were more talented. And then I knew what they added this year, and I know that they're more talented than last year. So I think that they're playing that way, but I don't think that they're getting sucked into this whole like, oh, we're 5-0 and like that's okay with us. I don't think that they're getting sucked in, and I'm hoping that fans aren't getting sucked into that either, because there's just so much more football to play, and there's just so much more like to be won. And right. When I was at Mizzou during those days of we were always winning 10 plus games, or it felt like we were always winning 10 plus games at least, and that was just so exciting. And I was talking to a group of kids, not group of kids, I mean they're like in their 20s, and they like grew up thinking that was normal. So right. Like that was normal for Mizzou, and like that's not normal. But like getting back to that is just like would be like such an exciting thing. And I really think that the players right now, like that's what they want for Mizzou. They want to be those people, just like that's what Jeremy Macklin wanted for Mizzou. You know, that's what those kids that went to Mizzou back then wanted. So right. I think that they're playing with that chip on their shoulder. I think they're playing excited. I think they'll be ready for that type of environment. And I think that environment will be ready for LSU.
It's a big moment. Certainly. I'm trying to find some of these advanced stats that I saw tweeted out by Parker Fleming at StatsOwar on Twitter. Because I thought there were some of the advanced analytics. It's like EPA per play. It has EPA margin. It has offensive success rate, stuff like that. All the nerd stuff. You know?
Yeah.
And it also has like a win probability. And it was, here, I just found it.
Oh.
So projected total points for this game is 31-29 in favor of LSU. Obviously, Missouri would cover there if you're a betting type. But I thought it was really interesting just to take a look. I'll retweet it on my Twitter right now. So I mean, I guess if you're listening to this podcast, you can go to my Twitter at Tucker D Franklin and see it. But I thought it was really interesting just looking out and like laying out all of the advanced analytics, advanced numbers. I'm not going to act like I know what all of them mean, right? Because there's a lot of them that I don't. But I thought it was just interesting when you look at win probability, projected points, and how close the advanced numbers, the numbers make this game out to be. Because as Missouri fan, I think it's going to be a really close game. If the game is 31-29, Maggie, in favor of LSU, you're not upset, right?
No, I wouldn't say I'm upset. I would hope at that point that we have the ball in our hands with a chance to win it.
Sure.
Maybe. Like I would hope that it wasn't because we scored last minute to get that. Because at least then, you know, if you fail, you fail,
mm-hmm.
and that happen. I mean, it happens. But you wanna play with a chance to win. I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that they can keep it a one-possession game. I think that's very real. The corners have been playing better as of late. And there's a couple times they got burned by Will Sheppard, but like Will Sheppard's going to get you every now and again. Like, fine, I'll live with that. Malik Neighbors, I'll give you guys a little peek here. Malik Neighbors is going to beat one of these guys a couple times. Like, he's just good. Like, he's just good. Like, that's going to happen. Sometimes that happens. But yeah, I think it's a wildly interesting game and a very good position for Mizzou to be in. Maggie, we'll wrap up with some final thoughts, some predictions, and we'll talk a little hoops. We need to talk a little bit of hoops because there's some movement going on when it comes with Dennis Gates' squad in 2024. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Welcome back into Mizzou. That's who, Maggie. We're going to do predictions a little bit earlier on this because we do have some basketball things to talk about. What do you think of this game, prediction-wise? Let's get a score out there. I feel like we've talked a lot about it and kind of our expectations, but what's your score thought?
So I think that I don't even remember what the exact words that you said. What is that analytics? What's it called? That you tweeted?
Yeah, the win, the expected projected points is what you're talking about?
Yeah, or like what's the thing that you retweeted? What's like the chart called?
Oh, it's just called this is an advanced stats. Yeah, so it's from Parker Fleming at StatsOwar. Win probability in favor 53% for LSU. You can do the math on the other percentage.
It's like 31-29 it said?
31-29, yes.
So I think that's low. I think that's a low score.
The total is set at 63.5 at sportsbooks, yes.
Yeah, I think it's low. LSU's been over in every single game that they've played this year. They've hit the over in every single game. I'm pretty sure Mizzou's also hit the over in every single game that they've played.
Oh, look.
Maybe not the South Dakota game. That might be the only one we haven't hit.
Mizzou's defense also, which we haven't really talked about, has allowed like a decent amount of points in the last couple games. And like I think that's like the only thing from a negative perspective where I can see Missouri's defense is allowing a lot more points than I think we anticipated. But Missouri's offense operating at such a high rate has been able to offset that.
Right. But basically, in the fourth quarter, we've been giving up points, but we've been matching points per point. So it's kind of been making the games look a little bit closer than they've actually been, only because we've been doing that. So I'm going to go with a little bit higher, not a lot higher, but I think Mizzou's been averaging like 30. What have we been averaging? Like 32 points a game. I think that's up from like 24 points a game or something like that from last year. I'm going to take Mizzou, and I'm going to make the Mizzou hopeful happy. And I know that is crazy, but I'm going to go Mizzou because LSU's secondary is so bad. I'm going to go Mizzou 35, LSU 32. Close game, but I'm going to put Mizzou on top. Tigers on top.
When I was on KCTV 5 and I was doing my prediction here locally in Kansas City for the Missouri K-State game, I said that Harrison Mevis could come through when he needed it. He's going to have a redemption game. I think Harrison Mevis is a big weapon in this game again. I think Harrison Mevis is going to factor into the decision, I should say. And Maggie, before you were making your pick, I was waffling back and forth. Man, how do I want to pick this? But I think all of the things that I mentioned, LSU potentially has more to lose coming into this game than Missouri does. I think that Missouri can play way more fast, way more aggressive, way more with their hair on fire because they got less to lose. Like this game they are playing with house money, as I mentioned earlier. They get the 6-0. They win their first 6 games. They're already bowl eligible. They've already matched the win total of Eli Drinkwitz's past 2 years. Like that, they're playing with house money. I think that's just the best explanation. That's why I keep saying it. Because I think it makes the most sense. Luther Burden's playing out of his mind. Brady Cook's playing out of his mind. There's been no signs to show me that I think that they're going to slow down. And as you mentioned, the LSU defensive secondary is not good. And I think it's fair to say that their defense is not what we expected LSU's defense to be coming into the season. It's just not. I think Missouri's defense can come up with opportune plays, opportune stops. I think the home field definitely plays into it. 6.5 home dog is insane, truthfully. I think 6.5 is a wild line. So wherever you get your sportsbook stuff at, we're at DraftKings Sportsbook. Go run over there and get that 6.5 point spread. As the underdog has covered the spread in 8 of Missouri's last 9 games at HomeField. So think about that. Underdog covering when you talk about, Mizzou was the underdog going into the K-State game. They did end up covering that game. Obviously, they didn't cover early on in the season with the two, I guess you could say, cupcakes in air quotes. The non-cons. We'll be politically correct here, Maggie, and call them non-cons, not cupcakes.
Because did you say South Dakota beat North Dakota State?
I did
last week.
Yep.
Or last weekend. So
yeah, I'm maybe
go Yotes.
Go Yotes. This is a pro Yotes podcast. But I think it's a 3-point game. And I think it goes in favor of the Missouri Tigers because of Harrison Mevis, because of just kind of learning from that Kansas State game. I think Eli Drinkwitz is going to be, and if you think back to just the situation Eli Drinkwitz was in, now it's not an excuse for him to take a delay a game call there. Like that's not an excuse. I think that everyone knows that's just like, you can't do that in that situation. He hadn't really been in a whole lot of situations. When you talk about high leverage situations with a drive to win the game, hadn't been a whole lot of those in Missouri recently. I think that he learns from that situation. I don't think that mistake happens again. The Missouri offense, as I mentioned, been rolling. The defense has something to prove. That's their motto, something to prove. That defense has something to prove as they've allowed a lot of points to Vandy. They've allowed a lot of points to a couple of the Memphis. I think that's going to be a talking point for them. I want to see some interceptions. I want to see some forced turnovers. I want to see Mizzou capitalize on the opportunities that they are given. Each of LSU's last 9 games have gone over the total points line too, Maggie, as you mentioned. That's 9. That's going back to last season. LSU scores over. So smash that over 65. I'm going to go. Let's see. I guess I got to do math on this.
What was mine? Oh, yeah, I hit mine.
I think
67.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go. You said 38-35, right?
I said 35-32.
Okay, so I'm going 38-35. Tigers, Missouri Tigers. In this game. So I think Harrison Mead is going to come through. Maybe I'll get bit by being optimistic. I don't.
Gabe's gonna kill us. Gabe's gonna be like, "What are you guys?
What are you guys so happy?" As what the game is said. No, I'm just optimistic. I feel good going into this game. The vibes are high. I think that's all you can ask for is a good showing. And I think we could have a different conversation if like things don't go that way, right? If they don't show any life, so they just kind of roll over. I don't anticipate that to happen. I want that to be very clear. I think this is going to be a very good game. Might be the best game of the weekend. I'll say it. Could be a very good game. Put the LSU Tigers, I guess, not on upset alert because they are ranked lower than the Missouri Tigers. But Maggie, let's wrap up with some basketball talk. Couple minutes here, because listen, they've been going off in the high school recruiting. Dennis is a bad man when it comes to high school recruiting. I think they're back up to the number 1 class in the country. Leapfrogging North Carolina as they signed 4-star big man Trent Burns. I didn't sign him. You heard a commitment from him. I should make sure my vernacular is correct there. With, we talked about 5-star forward Jaden Quintance, wanting to come to Mizzou as well. A lot of people I've seen on the rival side on Power Mizzou, he's been crystal balled to Missouri. But Maggie, this looks like a huge class for Dennis when you talk about not only star-wise and like star power, but also in sheer numbers. Is like that was guy number 4 who
5
committed 5 who officially committed
5
to him there. Golly, what do you think about Dennis and the basketball Tigers?
I don't even know what to think. I'm trying to figure it all out myself. So you and I were talking about this a little bit before the podcast started. And so that's 2 centers now committed to the Missouri Tigers. And Jaden Quaintance is also a center. So I'm not sure how many centers teams typically take in the offseason. But I feel like 3 is a very high number. So I'm not sure if we're still on them or not. I honestly don't. I really don't know. I don't see us turning down the number 9 player in the country. It's crazy to me because that doesn't make sense to me. But all 5 players with Trent Burns is ranked the 100th player.
Yep. So
all 5 players, top 100 players in the country.
That's us.
When have I don't remember that ever happening. Like, it's crazy because in one of my group chats that I on Twitter, and we talk to people, and there's people being like, "Oh yeah, we're not taking this guy." I'm like, when have we ever been in a position to not want to take like a number 80th ranked recruit? Like ever? Usually we would be dying to take players like that. So yeah, I don't see us not wanting to take a player like Jaden Quaintance.
As you mentioned, they've got 4 4-stars, 1 3-star in terms of the commitment, and the 3-star highly rated guy. As you mentioned, all those guys. I think it's very impressive what Dennis has been able to do in terms of the high school recruiting. He's recruiting circles around big programs, which has been very impressive. I've been impressed. Is kind of a lot of the attention has been on football. Basketball has been doing some absolute dirty work when it comes to the recruiting. And I think it's a very good sign of things to come from Missouri. We talked kind of about this year could be one of those like gappy years, I guess you could call it, between like this class is going to come in from the high school ranks to what they have now. I still think they can be a respectable team, make the tournament. That's always going to be like if they make the tournament, good year. I don't care what they do in the tournament. If they're making the tournament, that's a good year. SEC basketball has gotten increasingly better throughout the years, and they've hired some good coaches. There's some great coaches hired in the SEC. Some very good programs come out of the SEC as well. But 5 guys already in a basketball recruitment cycle is a lot. So that makes me think maybe Dennis anticipates a lot of guys leaving next year. They do have guys that will have to leave next year too, right? Just because of eligibility reasons. But this is without the transfer portal, all straight high school recruiting. Maybe that's how Dennis wants to do it. Maybe Dennis wants to get these guys in there, the program for a couple of years, let them show out. maybe some one and done guys. Listen, if Missouri becomes a one and done destination, we'll have some fun Decembers. If Dennis Gates it gets them cooking, and Eli Drinkwood's got the boys cooking over there, we'll have some fun Decembers when it comes to bowl games. And I mean, probably Missouri, KU basketball game is going to be coming up at that point. But I think this year it's back in Lawrence. But a very good things coming from across the parking lot at Mizzou Arena.
Yeah, just while we're on basketball, Mizzou Madness at the Columns this Friday. So if you're in Como for the game for the 11 a.m. kickoff at LSU, which I assume a lot of people are going up on Friday, Mizzou Madness at the Columns, 9 p.m. Go support your Missouri Tigers. I will most likely be there. So
rocking your HomeField barrel, I assume. Rocking that home field. So appreciate everybody listening to the podcast and listening all the way to the end. Gabe will be back next week, we think, if he wants to.
Unless he's decided to just move to Europe.
Unless he decides not to respond to us, then we'll be back with Gabe. I'm still working on a guest. We'll get a guest before the podcast is up, before the season's up. Especially if there's a big win next week, we got to get a guest. We got to chase somebody down, Maggie. If we get a guest, if
who wouldn't want to come? Who wouldn't want to come on our podcast?
I mean, we'll just have to see. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Make sure to drop us a like, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Be a friend, tell a friend, as Pat McAfee says. We appreciate you listening to Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network. For Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin. We'll talk to you after a Mizzou win next week.